everyone, and welcome to ConCensis, the podcast from Censis Technologies. I'm your host today, Tyler Kern. Welcome to another episode of the show. Today, we're asking the question, what does a successful surgical instrument management system implementation look like? And joining me today to help answer that very question is Teresa Cole. She is the manager of sterile processing at UHS Northern Nevada Sierra. Teresa, did I get the name of your state correct?
Perfect. I'll give you a 10.
Yes. All right. I was definitely used to saying Nevada, and I've been told that is not correct. It is Nevada. So there we go. Teresa, welcome to the show. Thank you again so much for joining us. We're also joined today by Jason Blake. He's project coordinator at Censis. Jason, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Excellent. We are happy to have both Teresa and Jason on the show today. So Teresa, let's start off with you. What was the most important thing to you when you were looking for a surgical asset management solution, and why did you end up with Censis?
Well, the most important thing is being able to track to the patient, kind of a thorough implementation to be able to track through the process. Sorry, my hands are going. We've used SensiTrack in the past, so it was a system I was familiar with, so I was very comfortable and confident with using this at a new facility.
Yeah, that's great. So when it came to finally kind of making a decision, what made Censis the right choice for you?
I was not, unfortunately, involved in the original decision. That was a selling feature for me when I did apply for this job, is that SensiTrack was in place. It was going to be in place because there's very extensive modules to be able to track paperless, track to the patient, track the instrumentation. It was a very comprehensive system. So that was a selling feature for sure.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So Teresa, tell us a little bit about what the implementation process for a surgical asset management solution looks like. What all kind of goes into putting something in place like what Censis provides?
A little bit of stress to start with. When you first, it's overwhelming, but having a good base foundation of what you're going to be building into the system and exactly what your endpoint is. What you're looking to attain at the end of the day, if you're going to track to the instrument level, the tray level, and getting all that data and good data to be able to provide to the team for a good build.
Jason, from your perspective, what does implementation look like for a surgical asset management solution?
So getting all the right team members together. So I've been with Censis for quite a while and worked through many projects and we've gone through a lot of trial and error as far as trying to get the right people on the phone calls. We do a lot of weekly calls that bring everybody together. So the remote stuff that we've been all dealing with over the last couple of years is not something unusual for Censis. We've done a lot of project calls every week, and just getting everybody on board, especially Teresa and her team. She joined us in mid project, which was a welcome thing for us because she was very excited to jump in and get moving. But getting their SPD, getting your OR management, your buy-in, your people who have the buy-in for bringing the project on board. A lot of dealings with IT, information technology folks on the hospital grounds, security measures that have to take place of bringing a software into a hospital system. So one of the major things is get people together from the beginning of the conversation and be able to work through it to get to the endpoint where Teresa's actually able to use it. It's not just, I like to refer to a lot of things when I'm talking as talking about air, because we're talking about a concept that in the end is true, but it's just something we're talking about for like 6 months, and then we're finally able to, show something. So
I love it. That's a great point. That's a really excellent point. So, Teresa, tell us how a team like yours can be best prepared for when the implementation team comes on site. What does that look like, and how do you prepare your team to make sure that you're ready to go to hit the ground running?
A lot of it is great communication with the Censis team as to what we need for the build. It's having a good team in place with kind of an end game and you're knowing exactly where you want to be. We had kind of mapped and planned it out, and we had weekly conversations with SensiTrack that the team was a part of, knowing what we were trying to do. So it was a lot of fun.
Jason, how did you prepare Teresa and her team for their implementation? I know Teresa came on kind of midway through, but how did you begin that preparation for them that would help lead them to success?
So the first couple things that we actually work with have to do with, the main thing is their data. What is their information going to look like? So in the sterile processing world, the folks that are probably going to be watching this will understand count sheets and instrumentation, and that is the core build for any tracking system, is to ensure that you have the right data in place. All their trays, the tray names, anything that has to do with that is the first really big thing. The second thing is working with IT and getting the hardware understood that is needed. So we go through and look at their floor plans. And for Teresa and her folks there, they had a brand new facility being built. So we were kind of going off of what it should be when it gets done. So that can be a little bit tricky. Sometimes we work with projects that are they already have an existing system and we switch over, but for her it was from the ground up new. So we had to get the right floor plans and understand their logistics for the area, what would work well for their hardware to make the process work. Because if you don't have the processes scanning through the system, so they have all these different areas, decontamination, assembly, sterilization, all that fun stuff that has to do with getting an instrument done, you need to make sure that you can capture as much information as possible in those areas in their workflow in order for them to be able to track properly. So those are two of the main areas that we work with to get them prepared. There's a lot of IT technical, interfacing and all that fun stuff that goes in the background. And we have other resources, both on Teresa's side and our side, that handle those pieces. But the main part is working with Teresa and her on the ground staff, making sure we have all of that in place and correct for them.
I think that's really well put, Jason. I think you made some excellent points there. And so, Teresa, I want to come back to you. Yeah. Tell us how sterile processing departments are trained on this system.
For us, we had the benefit of already being trained from a different build, so we're kind of the wrong people to ask. But it's a lot of hands-on, showing us the tools and the features, and we had on-site people with training, which was wonderful, to show us aspects that we didn't already know. Knowing what you're looking for, with definitely the IT component was huge with building the right stuff in the system. So the ConCensis team was instrumental for that, no pun intended.
Teresa, when do you remember back to maybe the first time you were trained on a ConCensis system, whether it was at this particular hospital or a previous job? What was that training like for you?
It was on-the-job training from one of my peers. And so I didn't really get to learn all the nuances of the system and how absolutely fabulous it is. So I learned as I went, accidental, in terms of we used to do instrument tracking at our previous facility. We don't do the actual instruments here, but learning that component, how to track trays through the system, and all of the scan points that Jason was talking about earlier. So it was just trial and error on my part.
Excellent. So, Jason, tell us some of the key features that you want to make sure that teams know how to use when they're first starting out with ConCensis.
So a really big one for them is location scanning. So where they capture all of the pieces going through the tracking system, how they're able to see how that information filters in. So there's reports, there's all this background stuff that you can do to look at things, but front and center for Teresa and her, the frontline staff, not just management, but the folks that are actually using the system, being able to see what they've done. So if they look up a tray, they can see all the different areas that have been scanned. They can find out where, those items are. So tracking system, that's what that's what the system is for. So the big thing is for being able to see the locations and make it through the process. The other aspect of it is sterilization. So a lot of these facilities work towards going paperless, being able to track, it's technically a legal document, sterilization, what was sterilized, the biologicals that were run for it, and being able to track that and house it so that they have it readily accessible for them should they ever need it for any reason.
Absolutely. So, Teresa, tell us tell us about the process of working with Jason on implementation here. Obviously, like you said, you came in kind of in the middle from where you started to, being fully implemented and ready to rock and roll. What was that process like of working with Jason?
It was amazing to start with. Very thorough communication as to exactly what was needed for a successful build. Instrument names, reference numbers. Him and I worked very closely together. If I had a question about something, he was always on the end of the cell phone or email to assist, like, hey, can we do this? Yeah, not a problem. We can work through it this way. So it was absolutely fabulous. Really appreciated.
Jason, anything you want to add?
Oh, it was a great working relationship. I honestly can say it was one of the better ones that I have, and I've enjoyed working with. Having had an SPD background, I know what folks go through on a daily basis when they're trying to work with us and bring a project in. With Teresa, trying to get something built from the ground up, new trays, new area, new things built. She had a great attitude, and having somebody excited for us to come in and be there always makes it so much easier.
Did he say Nevada correctly right off the bat, Teresa? Or did you have to teach him that?
So,
okay,
he's got it in there.
So, yeah, so that makes the relationship strong just right there from the get go. So
it builds that foundation.
Yeah, it truly does. So Teresa, how important is it to have a dedicated resource to be able to call with questions and to follow up after the implementation process? How vital has that been for you guys?
It's been crucial, actually, to have a continuous person who really has the knowledge base behind them to support us when we have some random questions, and continued support. You know, it was about a month ago when the implementation team had left, but I still continue to reach out to Jason if needed, because we're always learning stuff. The industry is ever evolving, and same with the ConCensis program, and having somebody on my speed dial, for lack of a better term, is just phenomenal.
Absolutely. Jason, anything from your perspective, just in that follow-up, kind of after the implementation process is over, just being that resource for people, what's that like for you?
Well, that's really important for me to be able to, because I've worked so closely with them and on all aspects leading up to it, you develop a rapport, whether I ever get to meet her in person, which I did not. Sometimes I do get to go on and set up their areas and stuff for it. But, you develop these relationships over time, and you're not just going to let them go. That's one thing we always say, there is a transition to another, area for support, but that we know who you are, we know what you've done. So I never have an issue with being able to follow up with folks and working with them. And I think that's a big piece at my company in and of itself encapsulates that as well. I not to self-promote or nothing, but I know that we work very closely with everybody, and we want to make sure that this is their living, breathing area. We give it to them. They're the ones that have to live in it. We want to make sure that that house is good for them.
Yeah, you deserve a little self-promotion, a little pat on the back. No, I totally agree. Teresa Cole, Manager of Sterile Processing for UHS Northern Nevada Sierra, and Jason Blake, Project Coordinator at ConCensis. Guys, thank you so much for joining us here on the podcast today and sharing a little bit more about what this process was like for you and giving us some best practices and some tips for other companies moving forward. It's been a pleasure having you guys on.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And everyone, thank you for joining us for this episode of ConCensis, a podcast from Censis Technologies. Make sure to subscribe to stay up to date with the latest. Of course, you can also visit the Censis website for more about their expertise on these topics and what they can provide with CensiTrack. And so you want to go check out the website and learn more about their solutions there. And stay tuned. We'll be back soon with more episodes of the show. But for this one, for Teresa and Jason, I'm your host, Tyler Kern. We'll talk to you again soon.